Welcome to the DreamHack Download, everything gaming under one podcast. On today's show, it's all about the never-ending PC versus console debate, especially as Unreal Engine 5 shows that console graphics can reach new levels. Plus, we'll take a look at how Justin got started with DreamHack. Let's dive in.
Hello and welcome to DreamHack Download, everything gaming in one podcast. I am Kyle, and we are talking today about the next wave of gaming. But first, I'm joined by my hosts, JV, Blaine, and Reinessa. Reinessa, we're playing with a new piece of software today called GridFam. How do you like this thing?
So far it's been interesting. I think my favorite part is the fact that we managed to replace Blaine with some really impressive looking graffiti. So I think we have, in addition to a podcast, a new art style that we can start marketing here.
Yeah, I love the Banksy plugin that this platform has. It's really sick. I'm going to slap that on a alley in New York and just see what people do, debate whether it's art or if it's vandalism. And it's going to be good times.
I'll pay 1 million.
You pay 1 million?
1 million bells.
Okay.
I would take that. I need some more bells.
I'm just saying, Red probably loves this guy. He probably loves this man. He can get all the scheming done, no problem. It's like, oh, the Mona Lisa has a crooked nose. Well, she's always had that crooked nose. Don't worry about it. It's 20 million bells now. It's authentic.
As long as it's got a Blaine in it, I'm sold.
Oh yes. Oh, your Animal Crossing museum doesn't have a Blaine in it? You fucking pleb. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, no.
And on that, my Animal Crossing has kind of fallen off. I don't know about you guys, but I missed 1 week of buying some nips on the market, and I didn't play almost that whole week. But now my friends are dragging me back in because they want to know my prices still. They're like, "Oh, what's your price? What's your price?" So like, what's your guys' prices today? I kind of need to know because I got nips now. I need to sell.
I haven't logged on in a while because when I realized you couldn't move the town center, and it is off center, but you can move everything else, and I have a perfect grid, and everything is nice and ordered and satisfying my needs for this, and you can't move the town center. And then one of the developers of the game started tweeting about how proud he is of Animal Crossing and how wonderful it's been for people and how you can get your bed and everything just so in the game. I monster raged out so hard because you can't get everything just so. You can't move the town center, and you people put it off center, and it's driving me nuts. It's absolutely driving me insane.
So 2 things. 1, can we never call it nips again? I'm sorry, Kyle. I want to interrupt so many times. Me and Blaine had the look for a second. We're like, can we not call it nips? Okay. I don't need to know prices on nips. That makes me think that we're in a very different kind of society right now. I'm not here for that kind of shenanigans. And 2, Reinessa, you're telling me that the town center is off center.
Yes. And this is why I rage quit Animal Crossing.
I have problems. Oh, poor Blaine. He Thanos snapped his mic into mute, and we just can't hear a word that he's saying. It's wild.
Oh, that's very strange. I'm back.
It's okay,
Welcome
man.
back, Banksy Blaine.
Yeah, but Banksy Blaine, being wall art in a New York alleyway makes it so that you can't really say anything. You just exist.
What I was saying is that I was too busy playing Fallout 76 lately.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So how's that game come along? Because I know it had a bit of a rough launch for sure.
Yeah, I mean, when it first launched, it was effectively an empty Fallout experience that just had multiplayer. There was no NPCs. The quests weren't terribly compelling, and I played it for like maybe 6 hours on launch, and I was like, I'm done with this. But now, after the Wastelanders update, it is a Fallout game. There's NPCs. There's tons of quests and storylines. They've added tons of endgame features. There's like almost not really a raid experience, but like a big world boss you can summon, and it's crazy. It's super, super good. I think I put 90-ish hours into it. Actually, let me pull up Steam. 104 hours over the last few weeks. So it's extremely good.
I will say, and we talked about it a little bit last week too, but it's cool that games now, because they're not released and what as it is released is the final product, but they're more like living, breathing works of art.
Mhm.
have the opportunity to have redemption arcs. Like, how cool
Yeah.
is that? You know, like
Yeah,
Fallout
these live
76,
service games
Battlefront
can
2.
evolve
Yeah.
and grow with the community, and they can listen to community feedback. It's very good.
No Man's Sky is another great example of this redemption arc as well, right?
Mhm.
A lot of empty promises, let's be honest and call it what it is, a lot of empty promises that they really weren't able to fulfill at launch. But you look at that game now, and not only have they been able to deliver everything that they promised years ago, but they've also supplemented that with so much new stuff too.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, I have 110 hours in that game.
it's
Wow.
cool.
Speaking of redemption and like that second chance at what the studio gets to do with these games, one of our topics today that we're covering is actually how did we end up here? And I know that
Story
one of
time.
the things that I love about us in this industry that we're part of is that none of us growing up expected to be where we are because our jobs didn't exist. I don't know about you
True.
guys, but I never aspired to be a event person in the gaming space when I was younger because it was not a thing. So I feel like we've all gotten kind of a second chance at what our initial plans at life were to dive into this gaming space and into this world that we all love so much. So kind of want to take a moment to get to know us a little bit more. This is our early days of our podcast. And, we've all spent some time chatting over the years working with each other, but really knowing what our origin stories are and how we ended up here at DreamHack, I'd like to know that. So JV, I think you are the newest one, technically, on the DreamHack employee side in the call. So let's have you give us your rundown of where did you come from? How did you end up at DreamHack?
Okay, so let me get this straight. We're like pre-episode 1, and you're already hitting us hard with the lore and the world building of the hosts
Absolutely.
themselves. The hosts
Absolutely.
themselves. You're
Where-
like, no, there is no redemption arc for this podcast. We're hitting it hard immediately.
Out the gate.
Out the gate.
I'm just hearing stalling here, JV. Let's go.
Fair. Well, my story in regards to how I started in gaming and everything like that is a little weird. Whenever I was a kid and I first was introduced to games via the Nintendo 64, I think the biggest aspiration I had in my mind was to be able to create a game, right? And be part of a group like Nintendo or something like that to put together something beautiful and incredible. And then I realized that I had the brains of a creative person and the hands of an accountant. So I scrapped that pretty quickly because your boy can't draw. Your boy can't doodle. I'm pretty useless at most things creatively. So I kind of put off that side of working in the industry because that's kind of all I knew working in the industry to be, was really that production element to creating games themselves. But I never really lost my love of gaming. I've kept up with gaming pretty much my entire life. And I kept up with my Nintendo 64 even to this day. It turned out that I was pretty good at Super Smash Brothers for the Nintendo 64. And I remember whenever I was in college, I had some friends who actually were pretty good at some of the newer iterations of the game, and they saw how good I was at 64, and they said, yo, you should take a look at some of these new games. I mean, there's all these tournaments and things like that all around the world, and you could probably do pretty well for yourself if you took a look. And so being in college, I learned the way that I knew how to learn anything, and that was by going on YouTube and doing research. And I was just kind of blown away because I stumbled upon this whole new world. I mean, it was a tournament I was watching called Apex, which at the time was considered to be the Super Bowl of Smash Brothers. And I fell in love immediately. And it wasn't really just with these new games and the players and how intricate their movement was and how fluid everything was in their creativity with their combos, but it was also because the first time I heard Smash with play-by-play and color commentary. And I remember thinking, I will never have a chance to do this ever in my entire life. But if I did, I'd probably have a lot of fun doing it because I'm a DGen. And I did a little bit more research and digging, and it turned out that the largest broadcast company that was Smash-centric in the South relocated to a location that was 5 minutes from where I was living at the time. And I had a friend who was friends with their director of content strategy who also did some commentary. And so I just jumped in his DMs and just was really honest and just asked for advice. Dude's name was Sean. He was super nice and really helpful. And at the end of our chat, he said, "Hey, one of these days you should swing by and we'll chat. And who knows, maybe if I like you, I'll put you on for a game or two." End up showing up and taking him up on that offer with a friend that I had made just a few weeks prior. And I thought that I'd jump on, I'd go on for a game. A white cane would pull me off the screen eventually to get me out of there. And that would be it. But they actually really liked me. And I ended up staying on board there and closing out the night 3 hours straight for my first ever commentary session. And then it was a big giant snowball. I eventually got sponsored by that company to be their premier commentator. Me and my friend, we did our first regional event, which turned into our first national event. Eventually, I was getting flown out to do tournaments and things like that. And around this time is when DreamHack made the announcement that they were coming to North America for the first time. I remember seeing that. I remember thinking, this is a massive end game content goal to make it to a DreamHack event and do commentary there. I didn't get it in 2016, but I did get it in 2017. That was my first experience at a DreamHack, was doing Smash commentary there for Smash 4, funny enough. And from there, just like the feeling and the vibe and everything like that was so nice, so incredible and welcoming. And I remember also around that similar time, I was thinking about how I want to continue doing more within the industry itself. And so the position eventually opened up about a year later, where DreamHack was looking for a marketing manager, and I threw my hat in the ring. It ended up working out really well for me after a very long interview process, and I've been here ever since. That was a lot. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to fucking make the whole episode
beautiful
about
monologue, sir. I mean, you're a degenerate Smash commentator that eventually ended up at DreamHack doing marketing, is what I've gathered.
Yeah, and there's a whole bunch of boring corporate stuff along the way too. That's probably the other side of that story. Is for me, it was a big time grind. Like, especially the early days of doing Smash commentary, I'd wake up at like 5:30, 5:45, so I could get to the office for my day job selling enterprise level software from like 7:30 to 4:30. Get home, do prep for 2 hours, go to the venue, stay there from like 7 to like 2 a.m. and then do that all over again. Like, it was nuts back then. So to be working in the industry full time with salary and benefits, and to basically show my love of gaming to as many people as possible, I mean, that's a dream come true.
I dig it.
I think Kyle.
I think Kyle's muted.
Yeah, he muted.
Hello. There we go.
Welcome back.
There we go.
You
Hello,
were so
hello, it's me.
moved.
You're
You were
so.
so incredibly moved.
Yes, by JV's wonderful addition to this team.
You should have made me go first. I had no time frame in my mind whatsoever in regards to what would be appropriate.
Well, the good news is we're going to spread this out and do this one each show. So we're going to get a snippet into each of our lives kind of as we do this show and progress into this podcast together. So you'll get to know a little bit more about each one of us some way or another. Next time we'll move into a Reinessa. You'll get to know a little bit more about her and how she ended up here. But stay tuned. More to come. But for now, there's been some interesting things happening recently, like really big things happening recently. Like, have you guys heard about what's happening with this company called Epic? They made some big announcements.
Huge announcements.
Yeah. And have you heard that their store's been down for 2 hours?
Yeah, the GTA, it was a GTA 5 for free.
Yep, GTA 5.
Crashing that.
Crashed Fortnite, crashed their game store, everything. And coming into recording, the last that we heard, I think it was still down and struggling, trying to distribute. No one's able to download the game. It came out of just left field yesterday with a tweet that was accidentally posted, I guess.
Oh,
and
wow.
Yeah, right. But that's actually not the biggest news that Epic wanted everybody to be talking about today. Funny enough.
Different vibe that they wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah, very different 5. Unreal Engine 5 actually is what we intended to talk about today. Epic just loves to give us some extra talking points. What do you guys think? Do you guys watch that video?
So I did watch the video. It's gorgeous as a tech demo. I mean, so on the one hand, it was beautiful to see, and like as somebody who understands the game world from a developer standpoint, it was awesome to see. I know a lot of people were very disappointed that it wasn't like a real game announcement or anything, but whatever. At the end of the day, that broadcast from Jeff Keighley was a way to give them a platform in lieu of E3. But the tech demo was beautiful, and some of the things they talked about that were incredible. Like one of the features was being able to port from UE4 to UE5. That's huge because back when UE4 came out, there was no easy port from 3 to 4. So that's really huge. It's going to enable all these developers to just slide into the new model. And I bumped my mic there. Whoops.
That's what that was. I thought you literally scratched a record, my dude.
So we moved, being able to move from one to the other is absolutely massive. They also talked about an interesting, very, very interesting and possibly revolutionary technology of being able to take a game that's developed, say, for Xbox, Xbox or PlayStation, whatever, and then be able to actually downscale it so that it works on mobile, like Android or iOS, and have like basically zero overhead in doing so. So the engine can actually do that for you, which is absolutely wild.
I'm glad to see Epic actually spending some of this money they've made from Fortnite, making all of our games better. This feels like the biggest public service that they could do as the position that they hold, is taking that money and reinvesting it into this engine, because this is a pretty big leap that we've seen for this engine. It's
massive. It's cinema quality in the tech demo that they displayed. It's crazy. And then the other piece that's absolutely revolutionary for developers is the royalty-free period. So when you sign with that, of course, with any engine, there's royalties, right? So, a lot of people listening probably don't know how a lot of this stuff works, but if you're using Unreal Engine, you do have to pay them a little bit for that based on what your game makes. However, with UE5, up until you make $1 million on your game, there's no royalty fees anymore, which is massive for small developers because every time you buy a game, a portion of that goes to the platform as well, right? And then the engine has to be paid, publishers, marketing, blah blah blah. A lot of your profit goes away when people buy your game because of the just distribution. It's not cheap, but this is massive because now they don't have to worry about paying that. And then after you've made $1 million on your game, you should be in a pretty solid spot, right? And then they're also retroactively taking that back to the beginning of the year. So anybody who has started using Unreal Engine up until the beginning of 2020 will be grandfathered into that.
Nice.
So freaking cool. Like, well done, Epic.
It feels like Epic's really learning from the experience they've had with all 4 other engines up to this point, and they've taken the feedback, and with the war chest they've developed, they're coming out and being Robin Hood. Pablo Escobar, maybe even, depending on how you want to think about them. But like, there's a lot of good coming out of them, and they're supporting their community in ways that it actually matters through this engine. And I love seeing that. There's been a few pieces of criticism that I've seen floating around of how this engine's beautiful, but it may not be the most technically deep engine out there right now, as far as being able to grow the games outside of the beautification of them. So it'll be interesting to see what this engine can actually do when you put it in the hands of all these indie developers that are going to tweak it and turn it into something that's not quite traditional, because that's where you see a lot of the non-traditional development come from, or these smaller indie studios. But the UE5 platform, being able to take everything mobile, being able to get your game in anyone's hands, that's going to be a part of the next wave, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things Epic are modeling here is Steam was absolutely so revolutionary because it did curate everything into one spot, making it easier. But when Steam started becoming big, I remember looking, but it was something like the developers were only seeing 30% of sales. And so when Steam came in and said, hey, we're only going to take 30%, you keep 70. That was an astronomical difference. And so now we're sort of seeing this next iteration of that. So not only is it, we're not going to take any of your money until you're making a ton, so you don't even have to worry about that. So that, the profit margins are skyrocketing here potentially because you pay so much less for the platform. Now it's also saying, hey, not only are we going to curate everybody's games onto one platform, you're going to make a lot more money from it. We're also going to help you distribute to more platforms. Like Steam was like, hey, this makes PC gaming easier. This is like, hey, this makes all gaming easier on every front. And so this is why it's so unbelievable, because this is like what Steam did back, I don't even know how far, 15, 20 years ago, however long ago that big jump was. This is our big jump right now. Like in 20 years, I think this is what's going to be seen as one of the big changes in how we game.
I love how intricate and detail oriented both of y'all are, and my orangutan brain is like 1 billion triangles, just like,
and you can have 1 billion triangles on consoles.
Yo,
I mean, I'd still buy a PC because, like,
¿por qué nos dos?
Well, that's one of the interesting parts about.
You need a console if you have a PC.
Excuse you?
Oh, here we go.
Uh-oh. Well,
okay.
We're going to just take a step back, let you guys go at this.
For Smash, all right? Like, I get it. Like, old stuff, but a new game? Nobody's staying exclusive to consoles anymore, so you don't need a console. You just need a PC. Okay. So unless funds are an issue, I get that. It is a lower price point, but I'm not getting both.
Why don't you purchase and boot up God of War right now?
All right, first of all,
I rest my case.
No, how many games does a console offer? If we're gonna start doing Venn diagrams,
you want to do this all day?
If we're gonna start doing percentage of games that you can play based on what you're playing off,
we can do this all day.
Xbox, PlayStation, or PC. Which one has the largest game set to pick from?
I'm not saying what you're arguing is get one thing. I'm saying por qué nos dos, okay? My wife and I, we have a healthy ecosystem. Dual income, no kids. Life's nice like that sometimes, okay? What we got is a great PC. So we can get all the good PC games, beautiful graphics, all that stuff, right? We also got a PS4 that my wife got me for my golden birthday, which means I get to play Bloodborne. I get to play God of War. You can't do any of those things. We also got a Nintendo Switch, which means I'm rocking Zelda Breath of the Wild. What are you doing? Complaining about a town center that's not centered.
Well, it's not, and it's stupid.
Get out of here.
Well, to be fair, the number of exclusives has dropped over the last several years of game development. And part of that has to do with the fact that the platform wars of the old days are dead as hell. So if you're still sitting there in one camp or the other, get out, because it doesn't matter anymore.
Those games are going to get hurt in the long run is what it feels like. The God of Wars, everything except for the Zeldas and the Nintendo exclusives where they're just going to be like, oh yeah, it's got to be on the Switch. You're like, I'm going to buy one of those no matter what because it's Nintendo.
Yeah, that's literally why I bought a Switch, was for Breath of the Wild.
They're the outlier, right, in this whole thing. Like
they're the legacy massive IPs. And those are the ones that are going to drive those sales, which is great. But
y'all say that, but honestly, looking to this next gen, I feel like we're gonna have a turf war on exclusives and technology in particular. Like,
okay, so that's gonna transition us into our next topic. Ultimately, I think this is a good place for us to do that. So, rounding out the Unreal Engine, that is the next decade-ish of game development could happen on the Unreal Engine. Which I don't remember what the percentage of games that are developed on Unreal, but a lot of games are made on Unreal. A lot of big games,
modern games are
made on Unreal.
I really always appreciate games that are made in UE because it feels so good.
So to go back to your console war a little bit, eras of gaming are defined by console generations. Sadly, they are. Like when it comes back to it, PC master race, consoles, whatever you want to say.
Sure,
it's defined by console generations, but we usually get these big upgrades in backend in the engines for these games around the same time as console upgrades, so they know that they can target hardware that's going to be in those next gens and then ride out that wave of development over the next 10 years or so that this console wave will be alive. Our PCs will follow suit with all of the same tech that's in these consoles, but better if you can afford it. So this next wave that we're about to head into, we're about to see all of these major announcements from the biggest publishers out there. Microsoft's already kicked the ball off a little bit. We're seeing things rolling out from NVIDIA as well. Like, the next wave of gaming is upon us in a weird time, but it is still rolling out full force, and they are about to hit us hard with what we are going to be seeing next. So before we dive all the way into what's coming next, I want to hear what you guys think is your favorite leap in this generation. So if you look back from the Xbox, the beginning of this Xbox until now, the beginning of the PS4 until now, Nintendo's weird because the Switch kind of pops up in the middle and you're just like, yeah, we get to do whatever the hell we want because we're Nintendo and you're going to buy it anyways. But in that generation that we've seen, what is the biggest thing in gaming that you guys have seen that's affected your gaming, or that you've really liked the community's reaction to, or just like the biggest leap this generation?
Honestly, for me, it's VR. Which I guess isn't exactly a console, but could be a console. And that's the whole thing, is it's emerging as one, especially with the new Rift Quest. Yeah, the Quest. That you don't need the high-powered gaming PC to have VR anymore. You can have it at a much more reasonable price point. It is unbelievably immersive. Trying it back in 2015 as opposed to having the Rift now. That experience, getting to live out or start to live out what I read about as extreme futuristic sci-fi happening now is remarkable to me. We make jokes about Back to the Future and faxes still being a thing that they're supposed to be in 2015 or whatever. But like, there's some stuff that you saw when you were a kid that you were like, oh, they'll never develop that. That's not going to be a thing. And VR kind of felt like that. And when I was actually in it and experiencing it, that was really unreal for me. And then thinking about the fact that over 15 or 20 years, that development happened to something I never thought would exist in my lifetime, to exist in my 20s. What is going to exist in my 60s? Like, where's VR going to be there at that point?
It's going to be a chip in your brain box fed right into your ocular nerve.
There is a book about that. It's called like The Last Book in the Universe or something. It's terrifying. And I'm very afraid of that happening because of that book.
I just want the self-lacing shoes available en masse. We were promised that by this time, and we don't have it, and it makes me upset. I know Nike did the limited drop of the self-lacing shoes, but it's not enough. It's not enough. It makes me sad.
All right, JV, what's your gaming revolution in the past generation?
Oh, God. It feels really tough for me to say. I feel like there's a lot of individual standout games that maybe I highlighted during my Reinessa rant against PC exclusivity. But I think that the biggest jump, and I'm going to take some heat for this, it's a hot take, but the biggest jump is crossplay. Period.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
I agree with that one.
100%. I think that one thing that we're starting to see, especially as it really feels like developers themselves are having a lot more power, more so than strictly the mediums of dispersal, since they've really kind of opened up a bit. And also since people are being more interconnected with how they game, the fact that now you can play with your friend, play Fortnite with your friend who has a Nintendo Switch, with your friend who has a PC, the friend who's on mobile, all in the same client or together is crazy. It's absolutely bonkers. And I think that that sort of stuff is really going to impact how people think about games from a social perspective, and how much bigger and I guess further reaching gaming can be as a platform. Things like Fortnite and that sort of crossplay is really just the beginning. And we've kind of seen what kind of experiences you can have whenever you have an open environment like that. That's welcome to everybody. And I'm really curious to kind of see what this next generation looks like, especially for these cross-platform titles in particular.
I like it. I like that take. Not too hot, honestly.
No, not at all. I mean, I think the only people that'll have problems with that are the people that are still being tribal about the about different platforms. You know, like Xbox is the best, PlayStation is the best.
I did see a furrowed brow for a second from Reinessa. Just for a second, you can admit it.
Yeah,
It's
because
okay.
neither Xbox or PlayStation's going to be the best. I am a PC master racer for life
Oh, of
over
course.
here. So like if someone's
Same.
arguing Xbox versus PlayStation, of course I'm gonna smirk. Yeah, that's a dumb argument.
Fair. Well, so for me, one of the things that always gets me about games that are coming out these days is we are reaching the uncanny valley of graphics, and we are seeing games that look so photorealistic. It's absolutely wild. And even games that weren't terribly recent, such as the Nathan Drake series, actually is a really good example of this.
Yeah, Uncharted 4. Jesus Christ, that game's gorgeous.
So even the older Uncharted games still are absolutely beautiful and have very photorealistic illustration. So that's something for me that I've been really impressed with here over this last generation, is just how far developers have been able to push things with the tools that they have. And I'm very excited about the next generation because these consoles are extremely powerful, based on all the specs that we've seen from Xbox and PlayStation so far. And they are going to be just as capable as, like, honestly, the specs on like the new PS5 that's coming out. It meets and probably beats my PC, and I have a pretty beefy PC in many ways. So I'm pretty excited to see what developers can do with this kind of stuff. And it also means that because these consoles, and this is where the whole, games being on multiple platforms things is really cool now, is that because these consoles are so powerful now, ports from console exclusives, like that have timed exclusives, like Death Stranding's a great example. It was on PlayStation first, came out there, was there for a few months, and now it's available on PC as well. So these games are, in the past, it's been hard to port things from console to PC because of the way that they had to be built. Now these things are massively strong PCs, essentially, in a box. Now, when things are ported over, it's going to be so much easier because they're not going to be limited by the console's limitations. So I think that's super exciting for developers. And also with Xbox, they're not treating Xbox and PC as separate platforms anymore. One of the cool key announcements that they made, speaking of the whole cross-play thing, cross-platform, segue to that, is that anything you buy on Windows Store, like if you buy it for PC via Microsoft Store, can also be played on Xbox and vice versa. Really cool.
Yeah, it's their own crossplay within Microsoft, which we never thought we would actually see, because why? They saw the divide of console and PC is so large, but now the Xbox brand, which used to be a console, is going to be more of the Microsoft game brand, is Xbox. That's what it's slowly being developed into. One iteration at a time, you're going to see that piece of hardware become less and less valuable. And that is probably one of the things that I will land on. JV, you took mine ultimately. I think crossplay is the biggest thing out there, but one of the things that we're going to see that enables that more and more is, as the hardware is less and less necessary, gaming becomes more and more accessible. So things like Stadia at its core are incredible because it allows so much access to gaming in ways that was prohibitive, because not everybody can have a console that is $500 when it comes out of the gate, right? But everybody's got a cell phone nowadays. So bringing that accessibility of gaming all the way to whoever's device is in their hands is, I think, the biggest leap that I liked about this past generation. And it was something that we saw and wondered about for a while, and was it going to work? Is, my Comcast data limit's going to allow me to do this kind of thing? And the answer is no, they will not allow you to do that at all, because they will eat it up at this point. But it's still really cool tech, being able to game on the go, even with just your phone and a controller.
One of the things that's also been noticed and observed that's been really big is because everyone can access games, they're on mobile phones, you see demographics be a lot less narrow. And the big thing for me is a lot more women game now. I remember when PUBG went mobile, I knew a ton of women who tried it because they didn't have a gaming PC. I mean, everybody in college had Macs that couldn't run anything, but they all have phones that could run this. And they were like, oh, my friends are playing this, or I've heard about this. This is big in the news. And so Fortnite and PUBG both being on mobile was really huge for, like our age range of gamers. Maybe not Fortnite as much, maybe a little more PUBG. getting into it, but I also know that when they do surveys now, as opposed to surveys 15 or 20 years ago, you actually see like pretty close to a 50-50 split between men and women playing, because, you know, when we were little, I'm sorry, I never got a Game Boy for Christmas. I'm almost guaranteeing one, if not more of you, got a console as a present. And I have a very feminist mother, like, and I never got anything video game related as a present, birthday parties, any of that. And that's completely different now because the access has changed so much. You know, 5-year-olds are playing on mommy's phone, little kid games, and then that grows up. And so because of the access, we have a whole generation of gamers and a mainstream movement of gaming just because of access. And I think that's going to be huge for changing some of the issues when it comes to harassment, toxicity, and everything, because a lot of that comes down to understanding people's stories and representation. So over time, because accessibility has gone up, you see a larger variety in those taking part, and that on its own makes communities better. So I also like diversity that gets involved because of accessibility.
I like it. I mean, there's so much that has happened over the past, it's less than 10 years actually, but there's incredible leaps and bounds that our industry has taken. And that's all just in the actual games that are played, not to mention the growth that we've seen as companies like ours, as DreamHack, and the events and the space that has grown up in the past 10 years to coincide with how much we play at home and how much we want to gather around these things. There's other ways that gaming has grown as well, but moving into this next generation of consoles and how we will be playing some of our next favorite games. That's what happens next, is that you see this refresh, all the IPs get refreshed next. Everything gets done. So we're about to see a Halo, a new one. I'm so fucking excited for Halo Infinite, man.
I need it. I need it. The world needs it. We've waited too long for it. I feel like I've been waiting for Halo Infinite since Halo 3, my dude.
Since Halo CE almost is what it feels like some days. We've been waiting forever. Me and the boys are all old now. Got other little things to take care of that are life things that we don't get to play as much anymore, but this Halo is going to get the shit played out of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think Diablo 2 will not be, no real life things will get in the way of that relaunch for me. We all have our priorities.
What character class did you play in Diablo 2? I'm curious.
Oh, I was exclusive barbarian. So this is what happened.
Yeah.
I was 9.5 when Diablo 2 came into my household. And my mother ruled that I was not allowed to play until I was 10, since it was graphic at the time. That's her reasoning. The real reasoning was she wanted my brothers to be sick of it and not have 3 kids fighting over a computer.
Big brain mob.
Yeah, so the rule was like my brother had to help me play and set it up for me and everything, and he insisted, this was him being nice because barbarian's pretty easy, but he had to name my character. It was the only way I was allowed to play since he had bought the game. So I played a barbarian named Affleck.
I like it.
That's when the commercials were really big. And now every time I've reinstalled it and started over because I've lost my save files so many times, or even with Diablo 3, my first character has always been a barbarian named Affleck, and I refuse to deviate from that ever.
I love that. That's a good story.
That is a great story.
That's so wild. That's so. Did one of your brothers ever play under the handle Geico? Just curious. Yeah. Interesting family.
Sponsored
there.
Diablo players early on.
PC that has all 3 accounts is called Progressive. Okay, we're done with the insurance jokes. It's not that kind of podcast. We're done. No more. I'm out.
Blaine, what game are you looking forward to this next generation of gaming?
Oh my goodness. I think the biggest one that I'm looking forward to right now is going to have to be I know a lot of people are going to be saying the same thing, but Cyberpunk 2077.
Oh, yes, please.
It looks absolutely incredible. I'm a huge sci-fi nerd. I've literally this year I've read 20 sci-fi books.
Wow.
And many of them have cyberpunk. Thank you. I read a lot. Many of them have cyberpunk themes. I've specifically actually went back and read Snow Crash because I had never read that in the past, which is one of the cyberpunk classics. So anyway, long story short, I absolutely freaking love cyberpunk stories, and I'm super excited to see what CD Projekt Red does with this because I'm also a huge Witcher fan. And
Yes.
CD Projekt Red has such a great track record of telling incredible stories, and the graphics look amazing. And I can't wait. It's gonna be amazing.
CD Projekt Red's really turned into the story version of a Rockstar Games, is what it feels like to me, because at no point are they going to compromise in anything that they do. They're going to tell the story that they want to tell, and it's going to be incredible, and you're going to love it. That's all the way through, even to the point where they made a game so big that it probably is not going to run great on this last generation of consoles that we're seeing right now. Which, it's funny that Xbox has this Cyberpunk 2077 Xbox that's releasing right now. That's is it really going to be able to run that game? I thought I read a few things that were saying that it wasn't, and that's why they had to push it, part of the pushback that they had. But,
well, yeah,
we'll
game
see.
optimization for current generation is always a huge problem for developers when they're creating these massive AAA titles. But they did a really good job with, Witcher 3 on the Nintendo Switch actually looks pretty great. So I have faith that it'll be just fine because these guys know what they're doing.
Oh, absolutely. It's just when you build a game that's so big and beautiful and got so much detail to it, it's a lot.
Yeah.
I can't wait for that game.
RTX on. Oh, all the lights. All right, JV.
Dude, I'm literally, it's like I'm a dog in a Pavlov experiment. Like, I'm salivating right now thinking about this game. Like, are you kidding me? Oh, it's so good. All right. I'm going to come with a hot take that's probably more of a lukewarm take, but might actually genuinely be a hot take. What I'm excited for this console generation is not a particular individual game. There are a lot of individual games that I'm very excited for. Last of Us 2, Cyberpunk, of course, etc. But the biggest thing that I'm really excited about that nobody is talking about right now is for the Xbox to be relevant again from a hardcore gaming perspective. I feel like as a kid,
I'm sorry. You want so a console that has mostly been relevant because of shooters for hardcore gamers, right? For like high tier, competitive, best of the best, all that shooters. You want either aim assist controllers to be what's taken the most seriously, or no aim assist controller, and you want people to go through that fun experiment over mouse and keyboard? Are you kidding me? Where are you getting relevancy here in any of this?
I knew that you were going to focus in on the dumbest thing possible, so let's just jump into it real quick. Okay, so
this take just went
I'm sitting up for this, okay? Look at the posture, okay? I'm done leaning back. I'm sitting upright. My physical therapist is very happy with my progress right now. Let's go. So as a kid, the Xbox comes through, right? And they're like, sup, here's this platform. We're just the Xbox. You shouldn't care about us for any reason, except we got this little thing called Halo. And Halo was so unbelievably good that it single-handedly carried the Xbox into where it is and made it a significant name, coupled, of course, with Xbox Live. So you got Halo, you got that momentum going into the Xbox 360 era. And Microsoft, they're feeling pretty good right now. They're like, we got the Xbox 360. It's selling too hot. So hot that it red rings sometimes, but it's hot as hell. And they make the decision, and you can see it as a marketing person. You go back and you look at the Xbox One launches, the word gaming feels like it's really omitted pretty significantly whenever you go back to those early press briefings and you're talking about the Xbox One. They were not pushing a gaming platform. They're pushing a media entertainment system first and foremost.
The living room device.
Don't get me wrong. I'm all about doing, a lot of interesting new stuff, but you can only do that interesting new stuff after you make sure that you've taken care of the people that have supported you the most, and that first and foremost are gamers. When we look at the Xbox, the biggest challenge, especially compared to the PlayStation 4, the Nintendo Switch, even the Wii U, I'll say it, even the Wii U, the Xbox failed last generation because they did not have compelling exclusives, first and foremost. So how does this function into the Xbox for this new generation? For starts, they've acquired a ton of awesome, incredible studios, right?
Oh yeah,
One of my
all three
favorite
under Microsoft Studios now.
Yep.
That's massive.
Oh,
They've
yeah.
made huge moves.
Yeah, huge moves. I mean, one of my favorite games of the last decade, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, Ninja Theory. Guess what? They picked them up. No problem. They're like, you have great vision. You have incredible execution for this AA studio. Let's see what you can do with some Microsoft money, right? They have, in addition to all these great game studios lined up to release compelling, incredible products, they have what Kyle was alluding to as well, where now, if you're a PC gamer, it's okay that you don't have an Xbox. You can buy a game from the Windows Store and it all works. The thing that nobody's talking about, that I think is the golden bullet that Microsoft has, that Nintendo doesn't have, that Sony doesn't have, is the infrastructure itself. When we're talking about things like cloud gaming and all that kind of stuff, Microsoft is leagues beyond literally every other console out there. And I feel like when you take that perfect concoction, as long as they don't butcher and fumble everything from a marketing perspective, it's going to be absolute dynamite. They have the perfect tools, I think, to genuinely retake over the console market while simultaneously appeasing and getting revenue off of a PC base. That's my take on it. And that's what I'm really excited for.
I like that take. Reinessa, you look like you were going to say something.
I just don't see why any of that is relevant to making Xbox for hardcore gamers. Because, hey, guess what? PC's still going to beat out for a hardcore gamer at the Xbox.
That's
where I'm losing you.
So you're focused on this square rectangle shenanigans, right? I get it. People who build $2,000 PCs are hardcore gamers, but not all hardcore gamers build $2,000 PCs. There's a lot of people who really identify with gaming at a high level and essentially equate that experience with being on their couch with the controller in their hands, and there is nothing wrong with that. I will defend that till I fucking die.
No, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I'm saying like the hardcore top performance, best that you could ever possibly have is not going to be with a controller, except, and see, this is where I would go. I do know that games like Rocket League, a lot of the pros play with controllers. Yep. So what I would see is I would want to see almost a new game genre, something come up, not a shooter, not a battle royale, not a MOBA, but like something that makes controller gaming superior again, or like makes control. Because I agree with you, there are certain times where I really I miss sitting on the couch and playing, but my computer always offers me a better option. And so what I would want to see for Xbox to become like a great hardcore gamer essential identify, so it would be something like Rocket League, where the controller, the game programming has significant advantages for it because of the game style. I
think some games for me feel better on controller than on mouse and keyboard.
Like Dark Souls.
Dark Souls, Sekiro, love playing both of those on my go figure Xbox controller. And the fact that this sounds so stupid, but again, even from a hardware perspective, the fact that you can take this thing from your console and plug it straight into your computer, like nobody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about it, but it's a big deal. Microsoft, while the industry as a whole has just been, you know, for better or for worse, is kind of completely ignoring them, they've been making schmoves. Nobody wants to talk about it, but they've been making schmoves. Well, and seriously, if they have banger exclusives that come out coupled with this amazing infrastructure that they've built out, it's a game changer. Period.
And they also are doing it at a lower risk too, right? Yep. Because everything that's there is going to be streamed on Mixer, which they happen to own. Everything there is going to be put on the Azure servers, which they happen to own.
Exactly. And even with Mixer and
Wait, is that like the Elite one or whatever?
That's the controller that I thought Blaine would have. It's the big boy Xbox original controller that didn't fit in my hands well when I was a little squeaker.
Dude, that controller
African Duke that they re-released.
Look
man.
at that.
I've got a fat head. Look at this thing next to my fucking head.
Yeah, I was just saying I wouldn't be able to handle that. Like, this is a little much for me. Like, I have to stretch for the Like this is hard for me to even use the controller sometimes.
Oh,
Like,
you
I have
poor
to have a
thing.
pretty big
Yeah, I was
swing.
about to say, does she know how to hold the controller right?
No,
Is that-
I hold it normally, but I'm trying to like show you how far I have to go to get to the middle button sometimes. Like it's work for me to use a
You need the
controller
claw.
still.
You actually need the claw
Yeah.
controller grip.
Claw's a good grip. It's
Yeah.
nice.
Mhm,
Blaine,
yeah.
can you hide that controller under your beard or in your beard?
No, I think the controller's too big.
That is
not-
okay. That's
not
our new
100%.
measuring stick.
That's
Does
the
Blaine's
measure-
beard hide it?
So
Is it
I
bigger than
need a
Blaine's beard?
controller
I-
that can be hid by his beard.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you need.
I feel so bad for any audio listeners right now because they're really missing out on such like a key interactive element here.
Make sure you go over
Exactly.
to our YouTube and watch this portion of this show because we've
we'll-
got
we'll
some
clip it
great
out
Xbox
for you.
controllers.
It's true. It's like a one hand audio listeners get to avoid my entire being as it exists on screen, but also they miss out on the perfection that's Blaine's beard.
Don't worry, they don't miss out on you on the audio thing at all.
Oh no.
Do I need to soundboard your laugh? Because
No,
I have it
please.
now.
Ooh.
Please
Ooh,
don't do
can we
that.
get a
That's
good
rude.
use of that? Oh, something funny! Yay!
No, it didn't work. I didn't hear anything. You have no power in this realm, witch. Be
Excuse
gone.
you, I'm the editor. You just called me witch. I have this time stamped, and I
We've
have
done
ultimate
bearded
control.
woman. We've done witch, and now JV is asking to be turned into a toad.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Ooh, that would
officially
be
gone
fun.
off the rails.
Joke's
Okay.
on you, Blaine. We were never on the rails in the first place, buddy.
Ever. Welcome to DreamHack,
show.
ladies and gentlemen.
We were following the run of show pretty well, but here we are.
We got onto
Here we
Xbox controllers and we have derailed.
But yeah, TLDR, I really do feel like that's what I'm most excited for this future is for Microsoft to make moves. As long as the games are good, everything else is all set because they've built the Field of Dreams. They really have. They just need people to come.
With this next generation, we're going to see that solidifying, I think, of like Sony and Xbox, which one will fight over that title. Nintendo's going to be over there selling a bunch of cute games that we all love dearly.
Mhm.
When it comes down to it, and you guys had the option on the table, you had to buy a Sony PlayStation 5 or one of the new Xboxes or a graphics card of the same price. Which would you buy?
I already have a great graphics card.
Yeah, I already have a graphics card at that price point,
Yeah.
so it doesn't necessarily matter for me. But personally, I would pick PlayStation because I already have a PC that I'm going to be able to get those games on, and I actually have the Xbox subscription as well to play games.
Game Pass.
Yeah, the Game Pass. So I'm able to just play whatever on the Game Pass whenever. And I also have an NVIDIA Shield TV, Android TV box hooked up to my TV. So I can actually stream my desktop games, I can play my PC from my couch downstairs. It's amazing.
That's
So I just straight up don't need a new Xbox because I'll be able to play everything on my PC, which, is one of their goals. Like, they don't care.
Yeah.
However, the new Xbox may have some sort of a Windows mode and maybe mouse and keyboard support, and may also be incredibly powerful. Reinessa, you're muted. So we're going to end up with something really cool out of the Xbox as well, and it could be compelling for me. But ultimately, PlayStation will be my first pick.
Yeah, I agree.
And I just bought a used PS4 so I could play Final Fantasy, but I'd still would go for PS5.
Yeah, that's the thing. So for me, it is about enabling what I want to play.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was looking at getting VR, because that's the console I cared about, I was looking at, do I want to get the Quest so that I can just play and not have to do anything else? Or do I want to upgrade my PC and get the upgraded Oculus so you have a better experience? And so when I was looking at this, I was like, well, I'm going to get the graphics card first now so that in the future I can get the good VR, just because that's what I wanted to be able to play, and I wanted the flexibility that a PC VR experience offered, that like the lower I don't want to say lower quality, but the lower ability Quest couldn't do. Then of course, like 2 months after I bought my Rift, they released the software that could use your computer software to play VR on the Rift. So that was annoying, but that's it would be all about the games. It would say like which enables me to play the game I most care about.
Which is an interesting conundrum that you two, JV and Blaine, addressed in your guys' answers ultimately, that Microsoft may have cannibalized their own market to some degree, but is it still cannibalizing if you're playing it on a Windows PC?
No. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is there's a lot of people who, to Reinessa's point, are going to say, I have a PC, so I don't really feel the need to get a console, right? Mm-hmm. And I think Microsoft's making a smart move by kind of hedging their bets here and saying, we know there's going to be people who want the console experience, who seek out consoles specifically. We know there's people who are PC exclusive folks. Let's focus our efforts on making an awesome console to get all the console people and make it so that the games are PC available so we can still get some of that market cap too. It's smart.
And you also have to think about console availability. Console shortages are frequently a thing. Yeah. That's always a problem. So even if consoles, because here's what happens if they release it and it's wildly popular and they have shortages, well, then great. People are salivating over it and they can keep making more to meet up with demand. If they release it and it doesn't instantly sell out, hey, guess who doesn't have to mass produce them 10 times as fast? People are just going to go play on PC. And the thing I'd be really curious to know is if we're looking at profit margins and where they're making their money, they're probably making their money on Game Pass users like Blaine or people who are, buying the video games. Consoles make them money, but aren't consoles usually just upgrading the delivery mechanism for the games themselves?
Yeah,
they're normally subsidized.
Even I think the PlayStation 4 at launch, despite the hefty price tag, Sony was still losing like $50 a console at the time because they hadn't optimized their supply chains and because the cost of actually building and manufacturing the damn thing was so much. And I don't think it's uncommon for this generation to kind of have the same feeling too in regards to how light those profit margins are initially. But it's very much a long-term play. That's the name of the game for sure.
Yeah, they used to make it all on the hardware accessories and then the game licensure, and now they're not even selling physical copies of anything. Your controllers last forever. You're willing to pay $130 for the pink one the way that you want it. They get you every which way from Sunday now, and a lot of people that I know that are huge Xbox users or even just like Xbox controllers have multiple of these custom ID. Yeah. Xbox controllers now, so they really have hit every which way from Sunday to get you and have become immune from what could be a COVID supply shortage this year.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Nintendo's already ahead of because they've got years of people getting consoles in their hands, so they're not really worried about this right now as much as it is that their games have been so great that the demand has exploded. Yeah. And then Sony's the one that's
are short right now.
Yeah. But yes,
because people are extorting Switches. So
yes. But then Sony's going to be in this game kind of all alone come this holiday season. Like we anticipate that these all are going to be coming out around then, like they have for our entire lives. And when these consoles do come out and we don't have to buy an Xbox, we don't have to go worry about that. It almost makes it the no-brainer to buy the PlayStation. But is Sony going to have the availability in the beginning to even supply the demands? Normally they don't, just out of sheer interest, but this year we're going to see even shorter supplies and is anticipated at least, and the Sony beginning to the launch of what could be them coming off of the best console that they've ever made, quite low even in comparison to like the low numbers that you're talking about that they expect to subsidize. But the growth and long-term play that Sony has with the only console that you have to buy right now for some of the games that you may not be able to play on PC. Yeah, I think they're going to see a lot of PlayStations purchased no matter which way you slice it, and I'll probably end up having one over an Xbox this time around.
No, really, I agree. As much as I give Microsoft a lot of credit for how much I guess they have like in the future and how slept on it is, I still do 100% see myself getting a PS5 between the decision again, just because the games, the exclusives right now are in that favor. But I would not be surprised if that tide shifts soon. Would not be surprised at all.
Made that announcement about their studio changing. to now all of their games, all of their exclusives that they control publisher rights on are now under one studio. And
Right.
some of the speculation has been that they're looking to make the same move that Xbox has and create that PlayStation games can end up on Steam or on Epic or wherever it is that they may be best suited. Maybe even a Sony platform is something that we see coming down the line this next cycle. But if they are going to be threatened in the hardware space in the long run and they want to become immune to what is now a problem of supply and getting people to upgrade when they need them to, I upgrade my PC whenever I see the parts that I want, and it makes sense financially. With a console, like, oh man, I got to start saving for November now so I can get that console right away. So if they can remove some of those barriers and just become these massive game distribution centers that we know and love, I think we've got a pretty cool future coming for us for the next 10 years or so.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And on that, I think that's going to be our podcast, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Make sure you follow, like, subscribe, and make sure you check out our content coming down the line. And this is a DreamHack podcast, so follow DreamHack on all of our social media channels to make sure you stay up to date with all of the great things that we have as a company. Thank you for tuning in, everybody, and catch you next time.